You think you know fear. You've never tasted it like I have. Not the kind that makes your heart race or your palms sweat, but the kind that seeps into your bones, that stains your soul so deeply you can never scrub it out. I'm not talking about the fear of death or pain or even the unknown. I'm talking about the fear that comes when you realize you're not alone in the dark, and that the thing lurking with you is afraid of something else, something worse, something like me. If you're reading this, it's already too late. Maybe you stumbled across this by accident. Maybe you were searching for answers. Or maybe you just like a good scare before bed. Doesn't matter. You're here now, and that means you're part of this. You're in the circle. You're on the list. I'm not a hero. I'm not even sure I'm human anymore. I used to be once. I had a name, a job, a life that made sense. But that was before I became the thing that demons fear. Before I learned what it means to be hunted by the monsters that hide behind your eyelids and to hunt them in return. Before I started drinking their blood. You want to know what it's like to be the blade in the dark, the whispered threat that makes nightmares shudder. It's not glorious. It's not noble. It's a curse, and it's a hunger, and it's a secret I can't keep to myself anymore. Not after what I've seen, not after what I've done. There are things in the dark that even nightmares avoid. I'm the reason why. I'm the warning they whisper to each other when the sun goes down. And if you're still listening, if you're still reading, you need to ask yourself, do you really want to know what's out there? Do you really want to know what I've become? Because once you know, you can't go back. And trust me, ignorance is safer. But you're here now, aren't you? So let me tell you how it started, before the blood, before the blade, before I became the thing that monsters fear. I used to be like you. I thought monsters were just stories, something to laugh about with friends after a few drinks, or to scare myself with on a rainy night when the power flickered. My life was a string of ordinary days, stitched together by coffee stains, missed alarms, and the endless hum of city traffic outside my window. I had a job I didn't hate, a cat that barely tolerated me, and a phone full of unread messages from people I pretended to care about. If you'd asked me then what I feared most, I'd have said something stupid, like dying alone or running out of rent money. But the signs were always there if you knew where to look. I just didn't. Or maybe I refused to. It's easy to ignore the cracks in the world when you're busy scrolling through memes or arguing with strangers online. It's easy to laugh off the weird dreams, the ones where you wake up gasping, heart pounding, convinced something was watching you from the corner of your room. It's easy to blame the cold spots in your apartment on bad insulation, or the strange bruises on your arms on sleepwalking, or the way your reflection sometimes lags behind you in the mirror on too much caffeine and not enough sleep. I remember the last normal morning I ever had. The sun was a pale smear behind the clouds, and the city felt hungover, like it was trying to remember what it had done the night before. I burned my toast, spilled coffee on my shirt, and cursed the universe for making Mondays. My cat, Lucifer, yeah, I know, real original, glared at me from the windowsill, tail twitching like he knew something I didn't. Maybe he did. Animals always sense these things first. On the train to work, I sat across from a woman with eyes too wide and a smile too sharp. She never blinked. Not once. I told myself she was just high, or maybe one of those people who practice mindfulness to the point of being creepy. But when she got off at my stop, she brushed past me and whispered, "You're almost ready." I laughed it off, but her breath was cold against my ear, and I shivered all the way to the office. That night, I dreamed of teeth. Not fangs, not jaws, just teeth, endless and grinding, chewing through darkness. I woke up with the taste of iron in my mouth and a thin, red line across my palm, like I'd tried to hold onto something sharp in my sleep. I told myself it was nothing. I told myself a lot of things back then. The days blurred together. I started seeing shadows where there shouldn't be any, hearing whispers in the static between songs on the radio. My friends said I looked tired, that I should take a vacation. My boss threatened to write me up for attitude problems. Even Lucifer started avoiding me, slinking away whenever I entered a room. But I kept going. That's what you do, right? You keep your head down. You pretend everything's fine. You ignore the feeling that the world is about to tip sideways. You tell yourself monsters aren't real, until the night you see one. Until the night you realize the monster is you. It started with a nightmare, but it didn't end when I woke up. I saw something in the mirror that wasn't me, something watching, waiting, hungry. That was the last time I ever felt safe in my own skin. I used to be like you. I thought monsters were just stories, something to laugh about with friends after a few drinks, or to scare myself with on a rainy night when the power flickered. My life was a string of ordinary days, stitched together by coffee stains, missed alarms, and the endless hum of city traffic outside my window. I had a job I didn't hate, a cat that barely tolerated me, and a phone full of unread messages from people I pretended to care about. If you'd asked me then what I feared most, I'd have said something stupid, like dying alone or running out of rent money. But the signs were always there, if you knew where to look. I just didn't. Or maybe I refused to. It's easy to ignore the cracks in the world when you're busy scrolling through memes or arguing with strangers online. It's easy to laugh off the weird dreams, the ones where you wake up gasping, heart pounding, convinced something was watching you from the corner of your room. It's easy to blame the cold spots in your apartment on bad insulation, or the strange bruises on your arms on sleepwalking, or the way your reflection sometimes lags behind you in the mirror on too much caffeine and not enough sleep. I remember the last normal morning I ever had. The sun was a pale smear behind the clouds, and the city felt hungover, like it was trying to remember what it had done the night before. I burned my toast, spilled coffee on my shirt, and cursed the universe for making Mondays. My cat, Lucifer, yeah, I know, real original, glared at me from the windowsill, tail twitching like he knew something I didn't. Maybe he did. Animals always sense these things first. On the train to work, I sat across from a woman with eyes too wide and a smile too sharp. She never blinked. Not once. I told myself she was just high, or maybe one of those people who practice mindfulness to the point of being creepy. But when she got off at my stop, she brushed past me and whispered, "You're almost ready." I laughed it off, but her breath was cold against my ear, and I shivered all the way to the office. That night, I dreamed of teeth. Not fangs, not jaws, just teeth, endless and grinding, chewing through darkness. I woke up with the taste of iron in my mouth and a thin, red line across my palm, like I tried to hold onto something sharp in my sleep. I told myself it was nothing. I told myself a lot of things back then. The days blurred together. I started seeing shadows where there shouldn't be any, hearing whispers in the static between songs on the radio. My friends said I looked tired, that I should take a vacation. My boss threatened to write me up for attitude problems. Even Lucifer started avoiding me, slinking away whenever I entered a room. But I kept going. That's what you do, right? You keep your head down. You pretend everything's fine. You ignore the feeling that the world is about to tip sideways. You tell yourself monsters aren't real, until the night you see one. Until the night you realize the monster is you. It started with a nightmare, but it didn't end when I woke up. I saw something in the mirror that wasn't me, something watching, waiting, hungry. That was the last time I ever felt safe in my own skin. I learned the truth. Monsters are real, and I was becoming one. It started slow, like a fever you can't shake. My skin felt too tight, my bones too heavy. I'd catch glimpses of myself in the mirror and not recognize the eyes staring back, too bright, too sharp, like a predator. I stopped sleeping. When I did drift off, I'd wake up tangled in sweat-soaked sheets, heart pounding, the taste of blood on my tongue. Sometimes, I'd find new scars on my arms or chest, thin and pale, as if something inside me was trying to claw its way out. The world changed, too. Colors seemed deeper, shadows thicker. I could hear things I shouldn't, conversations through walls, the scuttle of rats in the alley, the slow, steady heartbeat of the man in the apartment above me. I could smell fear, sharp and sour, clinging to people like cheap cologne. I started avoiding crowds, flinching from bright lights, craving the cool hush of the night. But it wasn't all horror. There was a thrill, too, a rush of power that made my veins hum. I could move faster, react quicker. My hands were steadier, my mind clearer. I felt alive in a way I never had before, like I'd been sleepwalking my whole life and finally woken up. It was intoxicating and terrifying, and I hated how much I loved it. I tried to ignore it, to pretend I was still normal, but the world wouldn't let me. The city was different now, full of things I'd never noticed before, strange symbols scrawled in alleyways, doors that didn't lead anywhere, people who moved through crowds like ghosts. I started seeing the woman from the train everywhere, in the reflection of a shop window, at the end of a deserted street, watching me with that too wide smile. Sometimes she'd nod, as if approving of something I'd done. Then the visions began. They came without warning, flashes of another world layered over this one, a place of endless night and shifting shadows. I saw creatures with too many eyes, too many mouths, crawling through cracks in the pavement. I saw myself standing in the center of it all, holding a blade made of bone and darkness, surrounded by bodies that bled black smoke. One night, I woke to find someone in my apartment. The air was cold, thick with the scent of rain and old earth. The figure from the alley stood by my window, coat dripping shadows onto the floor. "You're changing," they said, voice low and distant. "You need to understand what you are." I wanted to scream, to throw them out, but I couldn't move. "What's happening to me?" I whispered. They stepped closer, and I saw their face for the first time, pale, ageless, eyes like storm clouds. "You've been marked, chosen. The blood remembers, even if you don't." I shook my head. "I'm not like you. I'm not a monster." A flicker of something pity, maybe, crossed their face. Monsters are just things that don't follow the rules. But there are rules, even for us, especially for us. They told me the rules in riddles, half-truths wrapped in warnings. Never hunt on holy ground. Never drink the blood of the innocent. Never let the blade taste your own flesh. The blade, they said, was both weapon and curse, a hunger that could never be sated, a promise that could never be broken. It would protect me, but it would also consume me, piece by piece. "There are others like you," they said. "Some fight the darkness, some feed it. You have to choose." I wanted to ask more, but they were gone, leaving only the echo of their words and the chill in the air. I sat in the dark, trying to make sense of it all, but the rules twisted in my mind, slippery as smoke. Days passed. I grew stronger, stranger. My reflection grew fainter, my shadow darker. I stopped feeling pain the way I used to. I stopped feeling much of anything, except the hunger, the need to hunt, to feed, to find the things that hid in the dark, and end them. I was losing myself, piece by piece. But I was also becoming something more, something necessary. Then one night, I heard it, a scream, sharp and desperate, echoing through the alley below. I felt the blade in my hand before I even realized I'd moved. The hunger surged, and I knew someone needed my help. Or maybe something needed to die. Either way, I was ready. They call me the Blade. The demons whisper my name. I didn't choose this. The hunger chose me. The first time I hunted, it was instinct, pure, animal, unstoppable. I followed the scream down the fire escape, the city's neon bleeding into the alley below. The air was thick with the copper tang of blood, and something older, fouler, that made my teeth ache and my skin crawl. A girl was cornered against a dumpster, her eyes wide and wild, her hands shaking so hard she could barely hold the broken bottle she'd found. The thing that had her pinned was all wrong angles and hunger, its mouth stretching too wide, its fingers ending in claws that scraped sparks from the concrete. I didn't think, I moved. The blade was in my hand, cold and alive. alive, humming with a need that wasn't entirely my own. I lunged, and the world narrowed to the arc of the blade, the hiss of the demon, the girl's ragged breath. The thing turned, eyes burning, and for a moment I saw myself reflected in them, something monstrous, something necessary. "Get away from her," I growled, my voice not quite my own. The demon laughed, a sound like broken glass. "You're early, little blade. The blood moon isn't for another week." I didn't answer. I let the blade speak for me. It cut through the air, through flesh and bone and shadow. The demon shrieked, black blood spraying the alley walls, sizzling where it touched the ground. The girl screamed, but I barely heard her. The hunger roared in my ears, drowning out everything but the need to finish it. The demon tried to run, but I was faster. I pinned it, the blade pressed to its throat. "Why are you here?" I demanded. It spat blood, grinning with too many teeth. "You don't know, do you? You're just a pawn, a tool. The real game hasn't even started." I pressed harder, feeling the blade drink its fear. "What game?" It laughed again, softer this time. "Ask your masters, if you survive." I ended it. The blade drank deep, and for a moment, I felt everything, the demon's memories, its hunger, its terror of me. I staggered back, gasping, the world spinning. The girl was gone, vanished into the night. I was alone, the alley silent, except for the drip of black blood. That was the first. It wasn't the last. Word spread fast, in the places where monsters gather. The blade is hunting. The blade is hungry. Some ran. Some hid. Some came looking for me, desperate or arrogant or just curious. I learned to move through the city's veins, slipping between shadows, following the scent of fear and rot. I learned to fight, to kill, to survive. But I wasn't the only one hunting. I met others, hunters, like me, but different. Some were old, scarred, eyes full of secrets. Some were young, reckless, burning with a need to prove themselves. We crossed paths in abandoned buildings, in subway tunnels, in the ruins beneath the city. Sometimes we worked together. Sometimes we fought. Trust was a luxury none of us could afford. There was one who stood out, a woman with hair like midnight and eyes like frost. She called herself Mara. She moved like smoke, silent and deadly, her blade a twin to mine. We circled each other, allies and rivals, never quite friends, never quite enemies. "You're sloppy," she told me once, after we'd taken down a nest of skinwalkers in an old church. "You let the hunger control you." I wiped black blood from my blade, my hands shaking. "It's not that simple." She shrugged. "It never is, but if you lose yourself, you're no better than them." I wanted to argue, but she was already gone, her laughter echoing in the empty pews. The demons changed too. They grew bolder, more organized. They started hunting in packs, setting traps, whispering about something coming, something worse than any of us. I heard rumors of a council, of old blood waking, of a debt that had to be paid. One night, I cornered a demon in the subway. its skin crawling with sigils, its eyes wild with fear. "Why are you afraid of me?" I demanded, pressing the blade to its chest. It whimpered, shaking. "You're the harbinger, the blood debt. When you hunt, the old ones wake. The balance breaks." "What balance?" It shook its head, sobbing. "Ask the Watchers. Ask the ones who made you." I killed it, but the words stuck with me, festering like a wound. Who were the Watchers? What debt did I owe? The hunger didn't care. It wanted blood, and I gave it what it craved. But my mind spun with questions, with doubts. Then everything changed. It was supposed to be a simple hunt, a demon preying on the homeless in the old meatpacking district. I tracked it through the maze of abandoned warehouses, the blade pulsing in my hand. But when I found it, I wasn't alone. Mara was there, her blade drawn, her eyes cold. "You're late," she said. I frowned. I thought this was my hunt. She shook her head. "It's a setup. They're waiting for us." Before I could react, the shadows shifted. Demons poured from the darkness, more than I'd ever seen, their eyes burning, their mouths twisted in hunger. Mara and I fought back to back, blades flashing, blood spraying. The hunger roared, drowning out everything but the need to survive. But there were too many. I was knocked to the ground, claws raking my chest, teeth snapping at my throat. I felt the blade slip from my hand, felt the cold seep into my bones. Then a voice, familiar, mocking. "You thought you were the hunter, but you're just the bait." I looked up and saw him, the figure from my nightmares, the one who'd marked me. He smiled, and the world went black. When I woke, everything was different. The rules had changed, and I realized I was never hunting alone. I was part of something much bigger, much older, and much more dangerous than I'd ever imagined. Everything I knew was a lie, even my own blood. I woke in a place that wasn't mine, a room that smelled of old paper and older secrets. The walls were lined with books, their spines cracked and titles faded, written in languages I didn't recognize. My chest ached where claws had raked me, but the wounds were already closing, knitting together with unnatural speed. The blade was gone. I felt its absence like a missing limb. Mara sat across from me, her face unreadable. She was cleaning her blade, the motion slow and methodical. "You're awake," she said, not looking up. "Where are we?" My voice was raw, my throat dry. "Safe for now." She slid the blade back into its sheath and finally met my eyes. "You need to see something." She handed me a folder, thick with yellowed pages and photographs that looked older than either of us. I flipped through them, my hands shaking. There were pictures of people who looked like me, same eyes, same scars, same haunted expressions. Some were dated decades ago, some centuries. "What is this?" I whispered. "Your bloodline," Mara said. "The blade isn't just a weapon. It's a legacy, passed down generation to generation. Each of us marked, each of us cursed." I stared at the photos, at the names scrawled in the margins. My own name was there, written in a hand I recognized, my mother. My stomach twisted. She knew. Mara nodded. They all do, the watchers, the ones who keep the balance. They choose who gets marked, who becomes the blade. I felt sick. Why me? She hesitated, then slid another document across the table. It was a letter, addressed to me, dated years before I was born. The handwriting was shaky, desperate. If you're reading this, it means I failed. The blood calls to the darkness, and the darkness answers. You are the last. The debt must be paid. I read it again and again, the words burning into my mind. The debt, the blood, the darkness. I looked up at Mara, my voice barely a whisper. What debt? She looked away. The demons aren't what you think. They're not just monsters. They're prisoners, bound here by the blood of the first blade. Every time we hunt, every time we kill, we feed the prison. We keep the old ones asleep. But the cost is us, our lives, our souls. I shook my head, refusing to believe it. No, that can't be true. She met my gaze, her eyes cold. You felt it, haven't you? The hunger. The way the blade changes you. It's not just power. It's a chain. Every kill binds you tighter. Every drop of blood is another link. I remembered the visions, the dreams of endless night, the field of bones. I remembered the way the blade had felt in my hand, alive, hungry, never satisfied. I remembered the figure from the alley, the one who'd marked me. As if summoned by my thoughts, the door creaked open. He stepped inside, his coat trailing shadows, his eyes burning with secrets. You understand now, he said. The truth, the price. I stood, anger boiling in my veins. You used me, all of you. You made me into this. He smiled, sad and knowing. We all make choices. Some of us choose to fight. Some of us choose to forget. But the debt must be paid. Mara's hand tightened on her blade. You could have told us. You could have warned us. He shook his head. Would it have changed anything? The blood calls. The darkness answers. It always has. I felt something break inside me, a trust, a hope, maybe even my last shred of humanity. I looked at Mara, searching for something, comfort, understanding, forgiveness. But her face was hard, closed. You knew, I said, the words tasting like ash. You knew, and you let me become this. She flinched, just a little. I tried to help. I tried to show you the truth. The man stepped closer, his shadow falling over both of us. You have a choice, he said. You can keep hunting, keep feeding the prison, keep the old ones asleep. Or you can walk away. Let the darkness wake. Let the world burn. It was an impossible choice, sacrifice, or damnation. My life, my soul, for a world that would never know what I'd done. Or freedom at the cost of everything. I looked at my hands, at the scars, at the blood that wasn't all mine. I thought of the girl in the alley, of the demons I'd killed, of the hunger that would never leave me. There's a reason the demons fear me. And it's not what you think. It's because I'm the only thing standing between them and the end. And now, I had to decide if I wanted to keep being their jailer or become their executioner. This is what I was made for, but at what cost? The city was wrong that night. The air was too still, the sky too dark, as if the world itself was holding its breath. I could feel the hunger in my bones, the blade's pulse in my hand, the weight of every choice I'd made pressing down on me. Mara was at my side, her face set, her eyes cold. The man, the watcher, stood across from us, his shadow stretching long and thin, swallowing the light. "They're waking," he said, voice barely more than a whisper. "The old ones. The prison is weakening. You know what you have to do." I looked at Mara, searching for doubt, for fear, for anything that would let me turn away. But she only nodded, her grip tightening on her blade. "We end this," she said, "one way or another." We moved through the city like ghosts, following the pull of the blade, the scent of blood and rot. The streets were empty, the silence broken only by the distant wail of sirens, and the low, hungry growl that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Shadows twisted at the edges of my vision, shapes moving just out of sight. We reached the old cathedral at the city's heart, its doors hanging open, the darkness inside thick and alive. The watcher waited at the threshold, his eyes burning. "This is the place," he said. "This is where it began. This is where it ends." Inside, the air was cold and wet, heavy with the stink of old blood and older secrets. The pews were shattered, the altar cracked, the stained glass windows smeared with something black and oily. At the center of it all, a circle of symbols burned with a sickly red light, pulsing in time with my heartbeat. They were waiting for us demons, dozens of them, their eyes glowing, their mouths twisted in hunger. At their center stood something bigger, older, its form shifting and impossible. A mass of teeth and eyes and claws that seemed to swallow the light. The abyss. I felt it looking at me, through me, into the places I kept hidden even from myself. The blade trembled in my hand, hungry and afraid. Mara stepped forward, her voice steady. "We do this together." I nodded, swallowing my fear. Together. The demons surged forward, a wave of teeth and claws and hate. We met them head on, blades flashing, blood spraying. The hunger roared in my ears, drowning out everything but the need to survive, to kill, to feed. I moved faster than I ever had, the blade an extension of my will, cutting through flesh and shadow alike. But for every demon we killed, 2 more took its place. The abyss laughed, a sound that made my bones ache, my vision blur. I felt it reaching for me, pulling at the edges of my mind, whispering secrets in a language I almost understood. "You can't win," it hissed, its voice everywhere and nowhere. "You are mine. You always have been." I faltered, the blade slipping in my grip. Mara screamed, her blade knocked from her hand, a demon pinning her to the ground. I lunged, driving my blade through its skull, black blood splattering my face. The abyss surged, its form coalescing into something almost human, almost familiar. It wore my face, my eyes, my scars. "You are the jailer and the key," it said, smiling with my mouth. "You keep us locked away, but you are the door." I staggered back, the truth hitting me like a fist. Every kill, every drop of blood, every night spent hunting, I wasn't just feeding the prison. I was becoming it. The blade wasn't just a weapon. It was a lock, and I was the one holding the key. Mara crawled to my side, her face pale, blood streaming from a wound in her side. "You have to finish it," she gasped. "You have to choose." The abyss reached for me, its hand cold and endless. "Let go," it whispered. "Be free. End the cycle, or bind us forever and lose yourself." I looked at Mara, at the Watcher, at the demons circling us. I looked at the blade in my hand, at the scars on my skin, at the hunger in my soul. This is what I was made for, but at what cost? I raised the blade, feeling its weight, its hunger, its promise. I could end it. I could let the abyss in, let the world burn, be free of the hunger, the pain, the endless cycle. Or I could bind it again, feed the prison, lose myself piece by piece, until there was nothing left but the blade and the blood. The abyss stared back, and I blinked first. I drove the blade into the circle, into the heart of the abyss, feeling it shatter and scream, and pull at me with everything it had. Pain exploded through me, fire and ice and darkness, tearing me apart and putting me back together all at once. I saw every life I'd taken, every demon I'd killed, every choice I'd made. I saw myself, over and over, in every generation, every bloodline, always the same, always the blade. The abyss howled, the cathedral shaking, the world spinning. Mara screamed my name, the Watcher's voice lost in the chaos. I held on, teeth gritted, blood pouring from my wounds, refusing to let go. And then silence. The demons were gone. The abyss was gone. The blade was gone. I collapsed, the world fatting around me, the hunger finally quiet. But as the darkness closed in, I heard the abyss whisper, soft and cold, "This isn't the end. The door is never truly closed." And I knew deep down that it was right, because something had changed. Something had been unleashed, and I was still here. I'm not the hero, I'm the warning. When I woke, the world felt different, emptier, quieter, as if the city itself was holding its breath, waiting to see what I'd become. The hunger was gone, but so was the blade. I should have felt relief, but all I felt was hollow, like something essential had been carved out of me and left behind in that ruined cathedral. My hands still shook, stained with blood that would never wash away, no matter how hard I scrubbed. Mara was gone. The Watcher, too. Maybe they survived, maybe they didn't. Maybe they were never real to begin with, just shadows cast by the curse, echoes of all the blades who came before me. I wandered the city for days, lost and invisible, watching the world move on as if nothing had happened. People laughed, argued, fell in love, died. The sun rose and set. The monsters hid, or maybe they just changed their faces. But I was different. I could feel it in the way people looked at me, the way animals shied away, the way my own reflection seemed thinner, less substantial. I was haunted, yes, but I was also something else now. Something the darkness recognized, something it respected, or maybe something it feared. I started seeing signs, strange symbols scrawled in chalk on alley walls, flickering in the corners of my vision. Whispers in the static of late-night radio, voices that spoke in riddles and warnings. Sometimes, I'd catch a glimpse of Mara in a crowd, or the watcher's coat vanishing around a corner. Sometimes, I'd wake in the middle of the night with the taste of blood in my mouth and the memory of a blade in my hand. The city isn't safe. It never was. The abyss is still out there, waiting, watching, hungry. Maybe I closed the door, but I didn't lock it. Maybe I just became the new key. The curse is cyclical, a story that never really ends, just changes hands, changes faces, changes names. There will always be another blade. There will always be another debt. And now, I'm the one who waits in the dark. I'm the one the monsters fear. But I'm also the one who knows what it's like to be hunted, to be hungry, to be afraid of what you might become. I see the signs in others now, the haunted eyes, the restless nights, the scars that don't heal. I wonder how many of you are out there, reading this, feeling the same pull, the same hunger. I wonder how many of you will answer when the darkness calls. Are you sure you want to know more? Are you sure you want to see what's really out there, lurking just beyond the edge of the light? Because once you know, you can't go back. Once you see the truth, it stains you. It marks you. It makes you part of the story, whether you want to be or not. If you see me in your dreams, run. If you hear my name whispered in the dark, turn away. If you find a blade that feels too heavy, too cold, too alive, leave it where it lies. Trust me, some doors are better left closed. But if you can't help yourself, if you're drawn to the shadows, if you feel the hunger, if you want to know what it's like to be the thing that monsters fear, then keep listening. Keep watching. Keep searching for the signs. Because the story isn't over. Not for me. Not for you. Not for any of us. And the darkness is always hungry for more. This isn't the first time. It won't be the last. If you've made it this far, you're already part of the circle. Maybe you've heard stories like mine before. Maybe you remember the Midnight Caller case, or the one about the girl who vanished between mirrors. Maybe you've left your own theories in the comments, pieced together clues from the background static, or caught the hidden symbols in the thumbnails. You know the rules. Nothing is ever just a story, and every tale leaves a mark. Some of you have messaged me late at night, sharing your own encounters, strange dreams, shadows that move when you're not looking, scars you can't explain. I read them all. I believe you. The darkness is bigger than any one of us, but it's also what connects us. We're all haunted in our own ways. So what would you do if you found the blade? Would you run, or would you fight? Have you seen the signs? Chalk marks on the sidewalk, flickers in the corner of your eye. A name you can't quite remember, but can't forget. Maybe you've already been chosen. Maybe you're just waiting for your turn. Tell me your story.